Right. Hello. My name is Mart-Mari. I'm I am a software engineer and a very happily married mom of 4 kids. I've been married for more than 16 years already. Yeah, I've lost 80 kilograms during the period February 2017 to December 2019. And my weight loss journey caused me to start a journey of introspection while trying to maintain this weight loss. I've been at goal weight now for more than a year already, and I mostly just blog. I don't normally. I've done some videos, but yeah, I mostly blog about my own introspection journey, hoping to challenge others to do introspection themselves as well. And I only write as and when the inspiration hits me. And every now and again I feel inspired or extra inspired, and then I'll do a video like this. So today's live video is my 7th live video, and I don't always know why I do these things to myself. But yeah, my previous live video was from October last year, and that one was on emotional eating, and I feel incredibly flattered that that video has had more than 6,000 views already. I can actually not believe that so many people were willing to watch it. So yes, today's talk is about overweight families and how I see fat being passed down generations. The people that I hope will benefit from this talk are parents of overweight children or people that were overweight themselves from a young age. And the benefit I hope will come through an understanding, almost your own type of aha moment. So I grew up as an obese child. I was already overweight by the time I started going to school. I'm not sure exactly when my weight problem started. I've got this little picture or photograph of myself as a 3-year-old, and in that photo I still look of a reasonable normal weight. So I think it must have been somewhere between the ages of 3 and 5. Sometimes it seems to me, well, I think it seems that way to other people as well, that obesity runs in families that, and I certainly believe this to be true for my own family. I mean, I've lost 80 kilograms. Both my sisters also struggled or are still struggling with their weight. At the time my younger sister committed suicide, she was about 90 kilograms overweight. My older sister is currently about the same amount overweight. Both my parents were also obese. It seems that we were all victims of the same curse, right? So for years I thought being fat was just in my genes. But I have 4 kids now, all of a normal weight. Certainly if being fat was in my genes, then I should have passed it down to at least one of them as well. The other reasoning is that I just had a very poor upbringing with regards to food. I was never taught about balancing meals and what healthy eating meant. And while my childhood food education might have been poor, every time when I would follow a diet, I enriched my food knowledge. After many diet attempts, and I've been on quite a few diet attempts, I had a pretty good idea of what healthy eating meant. I definitely knew what I was supposed to do and not do, and how I was supposed to eat. And I've always lost well, so if I would follow the plan and the diet, I would always lose well. But I never managed to maintain the weight that was lost. So if I had the correct food knowledge, why could I not figure out how to keep my weight off? Now today's talk was triggered or inspired by a conversation I had with a very overweight friend of mine recently. I did ask her permission to use our conversation in today's talk. So yeah, the two of us, we discuss weight a lot. Almost every time that I talk to her, it is the topic of choice. She is not in denial over her obesity status. She's forever on some form of diet or just about to start a new diet. or have just picked up 15 kilograms again. And I so badly want to help her, but unfortunately losing weight is one of those things where you can only offer an ear and some insight. In the same way, you cannot gain weight for anybody else, you cannot lose weight for anybody else either. So she started off our conversation like this. She asked me, did I always find exercising to be easy or something that I enjoyed doing? And I was like, yeah, not initially. In the beginning it sucked. It was only a long while after I started that I actually started enjoying it. In the beginning I didn't enjoy it at all. So she says, yeah, that's what she remembers as well. She and a friend of her, they went to gym together a long while ago, a few years ago, and it was torture in the beginning, but as they got fitter, they both started enjoying it more. So I asked her, why does she want to know? Does she want to take up exercising again? She is forever starting something new, okay? So wouldn't have been a surprise. But she said no, she wants to get her son to start exercising. She started him with some exercises that they received from the school, but he's not really enjoying them, and she was hoping if she can see him through the first few weeks, then he'll start enjoying them as well. So she almost wanted some sort of confirmation that it gets easier after a while. Now see, unfortunately my friend's son is an overweight young teenager, about my eldest age. So sighing very deeply, I responded to her. I said, there's a big difference to address here first. I wanted to start exercising. A few years ago, you wanted to start going to gym, but you are now deciding on your son's behalf to start exercising. So of course there's going to be resistance. Why do you feel that he should start exercising? Then she said, well, she's got to do something. And I was like, well, what is it that you feel you need to do? And she said she needs to help her son lose weight. He's got a big problem, and she just cannot seem to solve his problem with a diet. And she also doesn't want to put him on a diet. She's been on diets herself from when she was 9 years old. She didn't want that path for him as well. And over the holidays, she started becoming really worried about him even more. She said what they did over the holidays, they bought a big box of cookies for to enjoy now that the schools are closed. And on Christmas Day, they each had 2 cookies. Now it's just her and her husband and her son in her little family. So they each had about 2 cookies, so there was still quite a bit left, and she packed the box of cookies away. And a few days later, she was looking for this box of cookies to open it again, and she couldn't find this box anywhere. Just poof, disappeared out of the house. It's only the 3 of them in the house. There's no one else. So nobody knew anything. Everybody said they know nothing about where this box of cookies disappeared to. And eventually she found the empty box with a few other empty treat packets in one of her son's drawers. Okay, so I asked her, well, what was your reaction when you found the empty box? And she said, well, she did what any other mom would do. She gave him an earful. She told him that they do so many things to try and help him. She tries to keep enough treats in the house so that it never feels to him that it's a scarcity and that he has to overindulge when he's presented with treats. I assume she mentioned this because this was perhaps something that happened in her childhood. So she tries to prepare healthy food for him to eat. She tries to get him to exercise. She tries so hard. And then he goes and does something like this. So I asked her, have you tried asking him why he ate the cookies? And she said she did, After her initial reprimanding, she thought perhaps she should rather just try and talk to him calmly. So thinking of my emotional eating video, we discuss weight a lot, and she's watched my videos as well. She thought she'll sit him down and try to understand what were the emotions that caused him to eat the entire box of cookies and then hide it as well. But she got a typical I don't know answer. So yeah, my therapist once said that therapy is nothing else but a bunch of aha moments strung together. He encouraged me to keep an aha journal, and in a big way, my blog is my aha journal. This conversation with my friend was definitely one of those aha moments for me. See, I've realized for quite a while now that adults use food as a drug. And by this I mean that we use food as a way to escape our current reality, a temporary escape, a way to, even if just for a fleeting moment, feel a little bit better. And it's completely silly and nonsensical. I did it. I talked about it in my emotional eating video as well. Sometimes I still find myself doing it. It's an incredibly difficult pattern to break. I so often get people that message me with the story that at least I don't drink or do drugs or smoke, I just eat too much, as if to soften their addiction. I get it so often that it actually got me thinking as why is it that so many people pick food as an escape? Now well, not drugs maybe, but smoking will definitely cause you to put on less weight. But is it maybe because food is just the easier option? You don't need to find a dealer or some other source for your fix. You just go to your local supermarket. And it's not like the president is going to ban or put a hold on food for a while. It's not like it did with cigarettes or alcohol. So it's maybe just the easier option. Or perhaps the more socially acceptable one. Or what if it was the only option to pick? And that would certainly be the case if their addiction started in childhood already. In my life story, I can see that I've started using food as a drug when I was still a very young child. But I never really saw this pattern in other children. And the only other children I really have to watch is my own kids. And trust me, I've been watching them very closely for it. Especially since I became aware of this myself. So all the people that have reached out to me, obviously thus far, are adults. Right in the beginning, before I even started with therapy, I also had a mom that mentioned her overweight children, but I didn't prod to find out more about it. So my conversation with my friend was the first time I heard someone else's observation of mindless binging, which is what I also did as a child. And I believe that in understanding how and why this happens can play a big part in breaking the generational curse that seems placed on overweight families. The first part in understanding this food as a drug behavior in children lies in being aware of the messages we communicate regarding food. Some of the messages that adults, not just parents, communicate regarding food are: food is pleasure, food is love, food is joy, food is community, food is a reward for when we are good. We associate food with celebrations and good times, and then usually there's food in abundance. Grandparents are synonymous with treats, and it's socially acceptable, actually expected, for grandparents to love their children by spoiling them with treats. For holidays, we fill our cookie tins, and when the year-end reports come out, then even the school suggests to treat our kids with ice cream for their hard work during the year. And for a more personal example, sometimes an abundance of food means that for a change, we had money and was able to buy treats and have guests over. And guests meant that for an entire day my mom wouldn't shout at me. We spend so much time getting this food as pleasure message across that I don't think we spend nearly the same amount of time teaching our children the nutritional value of food. For my kids, I still try to explain about protein being used to build muscles and carbohydrates being used as fuel, and about minerals and vitamins and why fats are needed to absorb certain vitamins. But even my own kids, I feel, don't have nearly enough knowledge yet. And it will probably take me a lifetime, but at least I'm trying. I don't ever see this education happen in all families, and perhaps it's just selective perception, or just that I'm only privy to what's going on in my family, not necessarily what's going on in other families. But I do see the food as pleasure messages. To me, it makes a huge amount of sense that a child looking for something to help him or her self-soothe would turn towards food. It is the only thing they can turn towards. They can't, okay, luckily not, they can't start smoking or drinking or doing drugs, or thankfully not. But yeah, it's the only thing they can turn towards, and it's so easily accessible. But why would a child need to look for something to self-soothe with? Well, why wouldn't they? Children are just human too, with normal human emotions. We teach babies to self-soothe from when they are small. This is like the key to getting them to sleep through the night almost. Certain people, children, are just more in need of this, and perhaps this is a personality trait that's passed down generations. That which they are trying to soothe can be something small, like being alone or being bored. Or it can be something traumatic or sad. I also think it's very normal for a child to want to hide this, like my friend's son did. I was an expert at this. I would cut just enough, or cut just few enough off, or take little enough for it to go unnoticed. Or I would simply drink extra milk, or take extra bread, or eat whatever else we already had quite a bit of, or something that my mom hardly ever used, like custard powder. I'm still an expert at making microwave custard, extra sweet. And I knew if my mom were to find out, I would have been in a lot of trouble, and she often did find out, yet all her reprimanding did was make me want to eat more. Which brings me to the second part in understanding this food as a drug behavior. When we react with anger and accusations, all we are really doing is piling on shame. The message is very seldom interpreted by the receiver as "I did something wrong." Instead, it is often received as "I am wrong," even if that was not the intention. Then these messages are internalized and later become our internal voices. And telling ourselves these messages are even worse. The other day I was trying to explain to another friend of mine why I find it so incredibly difficult to weigh myself less often. And at one stage I said, "I know I shouldn't weigh myself like this. I'm sorry, I'm terrible." And she stopped me just about right away to explain to me that I am not terrible. Me, sometimes still feeling that I need to weigh every day, does not make me a terrible person. Perhaps that what I'm trying to do is not 100% correct, but it still does not make me a terrible person. And all I'm doing by saying that I am a terrible person is piling more shame onto myself. The same friend explained this example of eating a piece of chocolate cake. She says whenever she decides to have a piece of chocolate cake, she decides to enjoy every last bite of it. She's not going to feel guilty or bad about having that piece of cake. And as she explained it, the only thing that guilt or shame over a piece of chocolate cake causes is more chocolate cake. And is that not the truth? Shame causes us to feel that we are wrong. We are never going to get this right. We might as well just give up. So I see us passing fat down generations like this. We almost solely build pleasure around food, and unfortunately not the healthy and nutritious types of food, but often the very refined, processed and sugary types of food. Then we neglect the proper food and nutrition education, sometimes because we don't have the knowledge ourselves. Especially if you know, if you weren't taught that in your family, and then you don't teach it to your children, and you almost pass down the lack of knowledge. And then, along with this glorification of food in our lives, we also pass down shame, be that in overreacting, or by mentioning something that our kids already feel self-conscious about to them, or even by trying to perfect them and adding unnecessary pressure on them. Anything that will potentially get them to a place they feel they need to escape from. But what is the solution then? How do we stop this? And by all means, I haven't figured this out. I am as faulty a mom as any other mom out there. But this is what I try to do. For my own kids, I try to do the following. Firstly, I try to educate them in nutrition. So I do not force them to eat their meals or to finish them. Well, not even finish them. They don't have to eat at all. But I encourage them to eat their vegetables, for example, by trying to educate them what it is that they will benefit from eating them. Mostly it doesn't work, but I hope something about the education part sticks. So even if they decide not to eat their butternut, then at least I've told them that there's fiber in it and there's vitamin C in it, and hopefully something of that sticks with them. If we do decide to have, or if there's dessert on a particular day, they can still have dessert even if they had nothing of their main meal. I do not encourage food as a reward. I never say you've got to finish your meal, otherwise you're not getting dessert. But then they can also not have 3 bowls of dessert either. They can also not get something else to eat if they refuse to eat the meal that I've prepared for them. So I do not expect them to eat their food. That is their choice. But the next meal is only served when it's time for the next meal. That's what I try to do for food education. With regards to shame, when I see my kids trying to hide something from me, I let them. It is so hard to do. It's one of the hardest things to turn a blind eye. But if I, for example, on Saturday morning, and I did this morning as well, if I empty their waste paper baskets and I see something in that basket that I probably weren't supposed to see, I pretend that I didn't see it. Or if my 6-year-old, what she loves to do is take my makeup and then hide it in her room, because she's a real little drama. No, she's got a career set for acting one day. But when I find it in her room, I do not reprimand her. I just take it and I put it back where it belongs. And I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it, but that's how I feel I would have liked to be treated as a child. Almost a respect of their privacy, almost, not really privacy, but a respect for their decision to want to hide it. Obviously this is done with, case-based. If it was something serious, I would have probably did talk about it. But this was actually a decision that I've made that had nothing to do with weight at all. But when I was a preteen, I wanted really badly to shave my legs, but my mom refused to buy me a razor, so I stole and I used hers. When she caught me, I felt so bad about it, but I didn't even get a chance to apologize. It turned into this massive fight that I still remember to this day. And it was more or less then that I decided if I were ever to have children of my own, then I'm not going to make them feel that way my mom did then for doing something they shouldn't have. But the most important thing I think regarding shame is this. I let my children see the imperfect me. Of course, I would have loved to have been perfect all the time and just get everything right, but that's so unrealistic. Not just for me, but for my children too. I need them to see that I also make mistakes and what happens when I make mistakes. When I say a swear word, I go, oops, I'm sorry, I should not have said that. I apologize to my children when I'm wrong. I apologize to them so much. And I've given my children permission to call me out on my bad behavior. In the beginning, they were rather hesitant to do it, but now they do it quite comfortably, and it helps. It opens my eyes to my flaws, because sometimes when I'm in the heat of the moment, that I don't see what I'm doing wrong. It helps them to identify bad behavior, and it makes them realize that I am just human too. And just being human does not make me a terrible or a shameful or a bad or whatever person. And when your daughter has a friend over to come and play, and one of the activities on her to-do list is to show her friend all of her mom's dresses and jewelry and earrings, and because her mom is just so cool, it's then that you realize that in her eyes, you're awesome. So yes, I hope this talk opened your eyes to some of the messages that we communicate regarding food and how we can potentially pass shame down to our children. The intent of this talk is not to add to the already massive mountain of parenting guilt out there, but rather to just bring awareness. Because nothing can be resolved if we're not aware of it in the first place. So yeah, I'm going to check if there's some questions quickly. I don't see any questions. Well, yeah. Then that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Please, I will, if you post questions afterwards, I will go through them and I will answer them as I get the chance. But yeah, have a great rest of the Saturday, and I will, when I'm inspired again, I'll do another talk again. Bye bye.